It was supposed to be a simple weekend escape. Liam and Ava McCarthy, brother and sister, just a year apart, had been planning their fishing trip for weeks. No phones, no city noise, no drama. Just them, a small rented boat, and the endless stretch of the Atlantic off the coast of Maine. Liam, 19, had just finished his first year of college. Ava, 18, had graduated high school and was weighing her next steps. They weren't the closest growing up, but lately, they'd needed each other. They left the harbor just after sunrise. The sea was calm, the air crisp with salt, and their parents were happy to finally see them bonding. That was the last anyone ever saw of them. When they didn't return by nightfall, the Coast Guard was called. What followed was a week-long search. Hundreds of miles covered by air and sea. Nothing was found, not the boat, not a single piece of wreckage, not even a floating life vest. It was like the ocean had swallowed them whole. 8 years passed. The McCarthy family buried empty coffins. Their parents moved inland, broken by grief. Life continued for everyone except Liam and Ava. Until now, on a rainy Tuesday morning, inside the grey halls of the NOAA's East Coast Marine Operations Center, a technician named Donnie Patel was running satellite diagnostics. Her job was routine check, signal patterns, map weather anomalies, calibrate ocean buoys. She'd done it 1,000 times. But that morning, something blinked red on her screen. Ping. Unknown satellite detected. Coordinates 43 1761 N 52 1373 W. Location North Atlantic Ocean. Signal source McCarthy BR to come device. Registered 2017. She blinked, sat up, ran the serial number twice. McCarthy BR2. Wasn't that from that old missing person case? She double-checked the logs. The McCarthy siblings had brought a civilian-grade satellite communicator on their trip standard for open water. It had gone dark the same day they disappeared. No signals, no pings. Dead. Now, 8 years later, it was back. One single ping, from the middle of nowhere, hundreds of miles off any known shipping lanes, near the mid-Atlantic ridge, where the ocean drops down into pitch-black trenches. And then it pinged again. Within hours, government officials were alerted. NOAA handed it to Homeland Security, who passed it to the Navy. The story was kept quiet, but leaks spread fast online. A few Reddit threads lit up. Some armchair sleuths remembered the case. Others thought it was just internet junk. But someone else noticed. Someone who shouldn't have. In a small apartment in Portland, Maine, Harper McCarthy sat alone on her worn couch, watching the rain hit the window. She was the youngest of the 3 McCarthy siblings, just 12. When Liam and Ava vanished, she remembered that day too well. Her parents screaming. The days they wouldn't eat. The endless visits from cops and reporters. She was old enough to understand grief, but too young to carry it. Now she was 20, working 2 jobs, barely sleeping. Her phone buzzed. It was a private message on an old Facebook account she hadn't touched in years. The profile name was gibberish, just a string of letters and numbers. No photo. The message simply read, "They're alive." Harper stared at it for minutes before replying. "Who are you?" No response. But seconds later, she got a file attachment, a screenshot of a satellite scan, coordinates, a location, a date. It was from yesterday, and in the center of the scan, 2 heat signatures, moving alive. Her hands trembled. She hadn't said their names out loud in years. Liam, Ava. No one else could be out there, could they? She didn't call the police. She didn't call her parents. She just packed a bag, booked a one-way ferry to the coast, and called the only person she knew who'd believe her. Daniel Knox, her brother's best friend. Now a washed-up Navy dropout with a drinking problem, and a boat no one trusted. The docks at Rockport were soaked in mist when Harper arrived. The early morning fog hung thick over the water, curling around the rusted fishing boats and half-lit harbor lights, like ghosts refusing to leave. She stepped off the bus with her hoodie pulled tight, her backpack slung over one shoulder, heart pounding like it was running ahead of her. She hadn't seen Daniel Knox in over 4 years. When Liam vanished, Daniel was the one who wouldn't let it go. He showed up every day during the search, combed the shoreline alone at night, tracked storm patterns, even tried to buy black market sonar data when the authorities shut things down. People called him obsessed. Her parents eventually told him to stop coming around. He didn't. He just vanished into his own grief. Now he was here, waiting at the end of the dock, leaning against a boat that looked like it could barely float. The Liberty Jane, named after some girl he used to love and then lost, or maybe she never existed at all. Daniel lit a cigarette as she approached, eyes shadowed under his worn red socks cap. His once sharp face now wore a few more lines, a little less hope. But when he looked up and saw Harper, he straightened. "I didn't think you'd actually come," he said. "I didn't think you'd still be here," she shot back. He gave a dry laugh. "You always were mouthy." They stood in silence for a moment, the sound of gulls and waves between them. "You saw the scan?" she asked. He nodded. "Yeah, got the same message." Harper narrowed her eyes. "Same message? From who?" Daniel took a long drag from his cigarette. "No idea. Same gibberish profile. Just said, 'They're alive. Go get them.' And then the coordinates. That's all." Harper felt a chill, but not from the sea breeze. "This doesn't feel right." "Nope," he said, tossing the cigarette. "But I don't care. If there's even a 1% chance they're out there, if Liam's alive, I'm going." He walked toward the boat. Harper followed. The Liberty Jane creaked as it pulled away from the harbor. It wasn't built for deep sea. Hell, it wasn't even built for shallow sea anymore. But Daniel had retrofitted it with stolen Navy sonar, illegal long-range comms, and a navigation system from an old Coast Guard cutter. He may have been broken, but he was still brilliant when it came to the ocean. For the first few hours, the ride was rough but uneventful. Harper tried not to look at the grey water stretching endlessly on all sides. It felt like the sea was watching them, waiting. She kept glancing at her phone, even though she had no signal out here. By the time they were 12 hours offshore, Harper noticed something strange. "There's no ships," she said. Daniel nodded. "I noticed. No traffic, no tankers, not even fishing routes. This zone's been dead for years. Why? Officially, bad sonar terrain. Dangerous for navigation. Unofficially," he hesitated, "some say the Navy cleared it." Harper frowned. Cleared it for what? He didn't answer. By the time night fell, they reached the coordinates. The sea was black glass, not a ripple, not a single wave. And then the radar beeped. Daniel leaned in. "We've got something." A blip, 2 heat signatures, floating. Harper rushed to the deck, peering into the dark, and then she saw it. A tiny orange raft, no lights, no markings, just bobbing softly, silently. Daniel swung the searchlight around and froze. His hands trembled. Harper gasped. Inside the raft were 2 people, unmoving, curled up. They looked like skeletons draped in skin, pale, wet, hair matted, but somehow they were breathing. Harper dropped to her knees. "Liam," she whispered. Daniel launched the dinghy and brought them aboard. No one spoke. The siblings didn't wake, but their vitals were weakly stable. It was them. It was really them. And then, Harper noticed something horrifying. Liam's eyes were open but not blinking. They were locked in a fixed, glassy stare, not at her, but at the sky, at the stars. The siblings were alive, but not awake. Liam and Ava were barely breathing when Daniel and Harper pulled them onto the deck. Harper cradled Ava's freezing body, wrapping her in every blanket they had on board. Daniel did the same with Liam, but he kept glancing at the sky every few seconds, like he expected something to come down after them. "Did you see his eyes?" Harper whispered. "He's awake, but not." Daniel nodded, lips tight. "That's shock. Maybe trauma. 8 years on the sea, if that's even where they've been." He didn't finish the sentence. Neither of them said what they were thinking. This isn't natural. Not even close. They laid the siblings below deck in the tiny cabin, set up for drips, and wrapped them in thermal sheets. Harper sat by Ava, brushing her damp hair from her face. Her sister looked almost exactly the same, like she hadn't aged. Maybe thinner, maybe hollow-eyed. But she wasn't 26 like she should be. She still looked 18. Same with Liam. No beard, no sunburns, no scars, just pale, silent, and still. Harper kept whispering their names, hoping one would blink, or squeeze her hand. Nothing. And then, in the silence, the boat's lights flickered. Daniel looked up from the engine room hatch. "That's not good." A low humming sound filled the air, like distant metal grinding underwater. It made Harper's stomach twist. The radar beeped again, faster this time. Daniel ran to the console. "Something's coming." "What kind of something?" He stared at the screen. "It's not a ship, not a sub. It's us, and it's huge." Harper grabbed the edge of the console as the hum grew louder. The boat began to tremble. The compass spun in circles. The ocean around them started to bubble. And then total silence. Everything stopped. The radar went dead. Lights shut off. Engine stalled. Even the wind died. Harper looked outside and saw it, a perfect circle of ocean around them, completely still. No waves, no movement. Like the sea had been frozen mid-breath. And then Liam moved. His body twitched violently, like something shocked him awake. His eyes snapped toward the ceiling, wide and blank, mouth hanging open. He sat up with a jolt, knocking over the four. "Liam!" Harper shouted, rushing to his side. He didn't look at her, didn't speak. He began murmuring something under his breath, fast, like a chant or a code. His eyes rolled, fingers twitching like they were typing. Harper grabbed his shoulders. "Liam, it's me. It's Harper." Still no recognition. His voice rose, the words more erratic. Daniel grabbed a med pack, ready to sedate him, when Ava suddenly let out a shriek. A sound like metal being torn apart burst from her mouth as she sat up, eyes pitch black. No, this isn't right," Daniel muttered. "They're not back. Not all the way." Ava's hands clawed the air. She whispered something Harper barely caught. "They're still watching." And then both siblings dropped unconscious at the same time. Bodhi's stiff eyes shut, like puppets whose strings had just been cut. Harper sobbed beside Ava. Daniel stared at the console, trying to reboot power, trying to believe this was still explainable, that this was science, trauma, brain damage. But the radar lit up again. One word blinked across the screen: observed, then another, retrieve, and then coordinates. Not just longitude and latitude, depth too. 6 meters down. Daniel read it and whispered, "They want us to go there." Harper looked at him like he was insane. "Go where?" "That's below the abyssal zone, Daniel. We're on a rust bucket barely held together with duct tape." He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I think this was the deal. They gave them back. Now they want something in return." Harper stepped back. "No, we're going back to land. We call the Navy, the FBI, hell, even NASA. This isn't on us." But the boat wouldn't start. The radio wouldn't transmit. The emergency beacon was fried, and the water around them was beginning to pull slowly, like a gentle whirlpool. Daniel clenched his jaw. "If we don't go down there, I don't think they'll let us go back." By dawn, the sea had turned from a glassy black to a milky gray, still silent, still wrong. Daniel had tried every trick he knew to get the Liberty Jane moving again. Jump-started the power grid, manually reset the engine relays, even reconnected an old hand crank on the generator he swore he'd never use again. Nothing worked. The boat wasn't just stalled, it was held. And beneath them, 6,000 meters down, something waited. Daniel stood at the bow, staring into the horizon like he could will a miracle out of the mist. Harper was below deck, still sitting between Liam and Ava. Neither had moved since their strange outbursts the night before. They looked almost peaceful now, like they were resting, but their pulses stayed fast, their eyes twitching under closed lids, like they were dreaming or trapped inside something they couldn't escape. Harper whispered to Ava, "Where did you go all these years?" The only reply was the low, rhythmic hum that still occasionally passed through the hull. Not loud enough to scare, just enough to remind them they weren't alone. Daniel came back down the hatch, holding something in his hands, a black waterproof case with a Navy logo scratched off the side. "I didn't want to use this," he muttered, "but it might be our only shot." Harper raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" "Old recon drone. Military grade. Submersible. I stole it, back when I thought I'd find Liam myself. Been offline for years." But he cracked open the case. Inside was a small spherical drone the size of a volleyball, with propellers, blinking blue sensors, and a retractable camera arm. "Name's Omen. They used this model for deep-sea wreckage scans." Harper crossed her arms. "You think sending a ball into the ocean trench is gonna fix this?" "I think maybe, just maybe," Daniel said. "We send it down to those coordinates and find out what the hell we're dealing with." They launched Omen an hour later. Daniel guided the drone from the cramped console room, fingers flying over ancient controls. The screen flickered and then displayed the murky descent. The ocean turned darker by the second. 500 meters, 1,000, 2,500. No signs of life, no fish, no plants, just endless, crushing black. It was like falling into the mouth of a sleeping god. Harper watched from behind him, arms locked across her chest, heart thudding harder with every meter. At 5,000 meters, Omen began to lose signal intermittently. Static crept onto the screen. The propellers slowed. Then, at 6,000 meters, it stopped. "No, no, don't you dare die on me," Daniel whispered, slamming keys and overriding protocols. The screen cleared for just one moment, and what it showed made Harper gasp. It wasn't just ocean floor. It was structures, massive, jagged, pillars, obsidian, black, covered in glowing rune-like markings that pulsed with faint blue light. The geometry was wrong, angles that shouldn't exist, shapes that made Harper's head ache just to look at. In the center of the pillars stood a spire, piercing up from the ocean floor like a needle aimed at the stars, and hovering just above it, not touching, just floating, was a pod. Glass, round, and emitting the same blue glow, and inside that pod was a human silhouette, a figure, arms stretched outward, head tilted back, unmoving. Harper's voice cracked. "Is that another one?" Daniel didn't respond. His hands were shaking. But before either could speak again, the screen went dark. The boat rocked violently. The sea around them erupted with sudden motion, waves thrashing, wind howling out of nowhere. The whirlpool returned, now faster, more aggressive. Ava screamed below deck. Daniel and Harper ran to her, nearly falling over as the boat pitched. Ava sat upright, eyes wide, gasping. "They're calling," she whispered. "They said I have to go back. It's not over. I brought them here. I didn't mean to." Harper grabbed her face. "Ava, who's calling? Who did you bring?" Ava's head snapped toward Liam. He was convulsing now, foam at the corners of his mouth, his eyes still closed, still trapped. "He opened it," Ava said. Liam opened the door down there, and something came through. Daniel stepped back, his voice hollow. "Oh God." And then, over the boat's speakers through a system that wasn't even powered, came a voice, mechanical, garbled, human-like but distorted. "Deliver them, or all will drown." The voice lingered in the air like smoke, thick, clinging, wrong. "Deliver them, or all will drown." It echoed through every inch of the boat, not just the speakers. The walls vibrated with it. The floorboards moaned. Harper felt it in her teeth, her bones, her blood. Ava clutched her head and screamed. Daniel grabbed the emergency toolkit and tore the speaker wiring out of the panel. Even though the power was already dead, it didn't matter. The voice had already been heard, and the message was clear. "Deliver them." "Deliver who?" Harper said breathlessly, pacing now, panic fighting its way up her throat. "Liam and Ava. You think they want them back?" Ava's voice came low and haunted. "Not us." Daniel turned to her, eyes sharp. "What do you mean? Not you?" Ava stared at nothing. "They want the one Liam brought back. The one in the pod. The one who wasn't human anymore." Harper's mouth went dry. "That silhouette in the drone feed. He stayed behind," Ava said, her voice trembling. "When the door opened, he stayed to keep it closed. But Liam, he couldn't leave him. A sudden jolt threw them all off balance. Something massive slammed against the hull from beneath. Then again, and again, the boat pitched, cracked. Outside, the whirlpool had narrowed, the eye shrinking, drawing them into its spiral. Daniel grabbed Harper by the arm. "We have to go down." "What, are you insane?" "Harper, you saw what I saw. There's something down there. They want it, and they won't stop until we give it to them. We can't outrun this. Even if we could, we're in a floating death trap. Daniel will be crushed before we hit 1,000 meters." He didn't argue. Instead, he opened another case, one Harper hadn't seen before. Inside was a deep dive suit, bulky, reinforced, patched up like hell, but functional. Old Navy model, probably stolen, modified. "One suit," Daniel said grimly. "No time to fix the second. I'm going." Harper shook her head. "You don't even know if it works." "I don't need it to work for long. Just long enough to retrieve the pod, to give them what they want." Ava started sobbing in the corner. "They lied to us," she whimpered. "They made it look like home. For years there were skies, trees, fake memories, and then one day, Liam broke the illusion. He started remembering. Then he found it, buried below their false world. The real ocean, the prison." She looked up, eyes raw. That pod wasn't just holding a body, it was holding something inside it. Daniel zipped up the dive suit. "Then I'll find out what." It took them less than 20 minutes. to rig a makeshift descent line using old mooring cables and a modified winch system. Daniel would ride a weighted cage, just metal bars tied together with ballast and lights, lowering him manually until signal loss or structural failure, whichever came first. Harper manned the crank. Daniel gave a thumbs up, slid into the harness, and with a final breath, descended. The water swallowed him fast. Harper watched his helmet cam feed a shaky, static-filled view of descending darkness. The ocean pressed, in tight, like a throat closing around him. At 4,000 meters, the screen blurred. 5,000, the blue runes returned, glowing in every direction. And then, at 6,000 meters, the spire. There it was, just like before, silent, alien, and the pod, still floating, still glowing. Daniel reached out. The moment his gloved hand touched it, the screen turned white. On deck, Harper lost the signal. She screamed into the radio. Daniel, Daniel, nothing. The boat began to spin again, water crashing against the sides. Below deck, Liam's body convulsed. Ava screamed. And then, silence. Everything stopped. A shadow emerged from the sea, slow and rising. Harper backed away from the rail as a round object surfaced, glowing faintly. It was the pod, floating, alone. Daniel wasn't in it. The pod hovered at the surface like it didn't need water to float. It gave off a soft hum, faint blue light pulsing from its seams, almost like a heartbeat. Harper stood frozen on the deck, soaking wet, mouth slightly open. Daniel was gone. No voice, no tether signal, no suit recovery, just the pod, and whatever was inside it. She stepped closer, slowly, carefully. The thing looked sealed shut, but not like a normal capsule. No bolts, no visible seams, just smooth glass that shimmered oddly when the light hit it, like oil on water. Inside was a figure, but it wasn't the same shape they saw earlier. It had been human, still vaguely was tall, with arms, face, even a torn patch of clothing that looked like Daniel's. But its skin shimmered translucent. Its eyes were black pools, too deep to be real. And when it moved, the entire ocean surface rippled with it, as if reality bent around its gestures. Harper stumbled backward. Ava appeared behind her, still pale, still trembling, but calmer, now, almost resigned. "It's not him anymore," Ava said softly. Harper turned to her, desperate. Is he inside that thing?" Ava's lips barely moved. "No, Daniel's gone. That's a shell, a carrier. It's the passenger." Now, the pod floated closer to the boat on its own, as if drawn by magnetism or hunger. Then, Harper's satellite phone, long thought dead, lit up. Just one message. "Return complete. Phase 2 begins." That night, Harper didn't sleep. They tied the pod down on the deck, unsure if it needed to breathe or move, or if it wanted to. Ava stayed below deck with Liam, whose heart rate had returned to normal but whose body hadn't moved in hours. Harper sat beside the pod, shotgun across her knees, and stared. It stared back. It didn't blink, but it was watching. She thought of calling the Navy, the CDC, a church, anything, but something in her gut told her, no one can fix this. If the world knew what had just surfaced from 6 kilometers beneath the Atlantic, panic would follow. Whatever was in that pod had waited for release. Now it had a vessel, and soon it would want to walk. By morning, the fog had lifted. The sea looked almost normal again. Wind returned. Birds circled above. The radar beeped gently, like nothing had happened. The illusion of safety returned. Ava sat with Harper, both watching the pod in silence. "Do you think it'll speak?" Harper asked. Ava didn't answer right away. Then, with a hoarse voice, she whispered, "It already did. When we were down there, it didn't speak like us. It used memories, emotions. It wore our thoughts like clothing." Harper looked at her, horrified. "You mean it can pretend to be us?" "No," Ava said. "Worse, that it can become us." That's when Liam's body stirred below deck. Harper rushed down, heart pounding. Liam was sitting up, breathing slowly. His eyes were open, but they weren't his. They were pitch black, just like the thing in the pod. He looked at her, tilted his head, smiled, and said, with perfect clarity, in Daniel's voice, "Phase 2 begins now." Harper froze at the bottom of the stairs, one hand still gripping the railing, the other reaching instinctively for the pistol on her hip. Her breath caught in her throat. "Liam," she whispered, even though she already knew. He tilted his head the other way, That same not quite human smile still stretched across his lips. "No," he said. His voice carried Daniel's tone, Daniel's inflection. But the rhythm was wrong, too smooth, too calculated, like an AI trying to mimic human speech. "But he remembers you, all of you." Ava appeared at the top of the stairs, pale, mouth open in shock. "It's not just Daniel, is it?" "No." The thing in Liam's body answered. "He's part of the network now, merged, one of many. What he gave up, gave us this." He gestured vaguely toward his borrowed body. Harper raised the pistol. "Get out of him." Liam's, or rather, the passenger's eyes blinked slowly, black and bottomless. "You misunderstand," it said. "There is no in. We are entangled. Consciousness isn't a room you can leave. It's a thread, pulled across dimensions. And this one," he looked down at Liam's hands, flexing them gently, "is strong enough to hold us." Harper took a step closer. "What do you want?" "Phase 2, it said, almost with excitement. "The others." Harper stiffened. "What others?" The thing looked toward Ava, the one still dreaming. "All across your planet, we've seeded many, but this body," he lifted his hand, "this one is the prototype. The key to making your kind accept us. No violence, no war, just surrender." Harper's hand tightened on the trigger. "You think we'll just let that happen?" The passenger's smile faded slightly. "You already have," it said. And then Liam collapsed. Harper ran forward, catching him before he hit the floor. His body went limp, pulse faint, but there, his eyes brown again, human, confused. "Harper," he rasped, barely conscious. She pulled him into her lap, holding him close. I'm here, just breathe." Ava knelt beside them, tears rolling down her face. "He's back." It left him. Harper didn't answer, because she didn't believe that, not for a second. The passenger had shown its power, and now it had a goal. The others, but where? Back on deck, the pod was gone. The thick cables tying it down had been snapped, not cut, not untied. Snapped, like a bear had crushed them in its teeth. Harper's heart sank as she approached the edge of the boat. The sea was still calm. Too calm, the kind of calm you only get before the air itself screams. She turned to Ava. "We need to warn people." Ava shook her head slowly. "No one will believe us. Then we make them." 3 hours later, they made radio contact with the Coast Guard. The storm had cleared. Systems had reset. It was like whatever held them out at sea had let go, or moved on. When the rescue chopper arrived, Harper insisted they take Liam and Ava first. She stayed behind with the wrecked Liberty Jane, her eyes on the horizon, watching, waiting. The captain of the chopper leaned out and called to her. "Ma'am, are you sure you want to stay out here alone?" Harper nodded. "Just give me 1 hour, then send another bird." The man frowned. "Ma'am, what are you looking for?" Harper's eyes stayed fixed on the water. Whatever else came up with that pod. 10 miles east, under 6,000 meters of water, in a trench that once held silence for millions of years, a second spire lit up. Inside it, hundreds of pods floated. One by one, they began to rise. 48 hours later, the world changed. Not with a bang, not with fire, not with an alien ship cracking through the sky. It began with dreams. People across the globe, thousands at first, then millions, began reporting the same thing. Visions of the sea, of dark waters, of voices whispering in languages no one knew but somehow understood. Warnings, promises, an invitation to come back to the deep. They dreamed of spires, of glowing runes, of bodies floating in pods, and always, always, a single phrase: Phase 2 begins now. Governments dismissed it as mass hysteria, a psychological echo, sleep paralysis, until the disappearances started. Harper never left the water. She was taken back to land with Ava and Liam, questioned, interrogated, prodded by every government agency that still had enough clearance to cover things up. But they knew deep down she wasn't lying, because satellites had picked it up. Strange objects surfacing in remote parts of the ocean, energy pulses from the Mariana Trench, fishing boats vanishing without a trace, Navy submarines going dark, and every single radar scan showed the same impossible structures glowing. At the ocean floor, the pods were rising. Whatever Daniel had brought back wasn't alone. Liam, now conscious but fragile, remembered little. His memories were fragmented, filled with things that didn't make sense. A sky under the ocean, a false sun, beings that spoke through memory and emotion. a door that wasn't meant to open, and his hand reaching for the handle anyway. But one memory stuck with him, a warning etched into the spire, not in words but in feeling. The sea does not forget, and it does not forgive, he told Harper. She believed him, because the world had forgotten the deep for too long. Within a week, strange phenomena began in coastal cities, tides acting against gravity, whales beaching themselves in mass, storms forming without pressure shifts, people always the dreamers, sleepwalking into the sea and vanishing. Harper stood at the edge of a military blockade in Charleston, watching helicopters swarm over the Atlantic. They still thought they could contain this, that bullets or sonar or depth charges would keep whatever this was beneath the waves. But she had seen the truth. It wasn't coming. It had already arrived. Ava joined her, looking older somehow. Hardened. They'll never believe it until they drown in it, she said. Do you think there's a way to stop it? Ava looked toward the water, then down at her own skin. I think part of us never left that place. I still feel it. It's like something's growing in me, like they left something behind. Harper didn't respond, because she felt it too, a pressure in her dreams, a voice whispering behind her heartbeat. Not yet, it said, but soon. On the 10th day after the pod surfaced, one of the spires rose from the ocean floor, a monolith of black stone, miles tall, emerging from the Atlantic just off the coast of Nova Scotia. It rose silently, without cracking the water, casting a shadow so long it turned day into dusk across the coastline. Cameras caught it. People screamed. Some knelt and worshipped. Others ran. But it made no move, no sound. It just stood there, watching, waiting. Harper's final journal entry, leaked months later by a whistleblower, read like this: "We thought we found our missing. We thought we got them back, but we didn't rescue them. We were the ones retrieved. The sea took them, changed them, and then let them walk among us again. We're not fighting invaders. We're living with replacements. And now the ocean is waking up." And then the last signal from the Liberty Jane, long since sunken into the abyss, echoed back through every satellite around Earth. Just one word: observe.